So you got yourself a four-sided shape. It's a quadrilateral. But how do you know if it's a special quadrilateral? How do we recognize it? Well, we're going to learn to recognize these special quadrilaterals by asking ourselves 3 questions about the lines of the quadrilateral. So let's start and look at question number 1. How many pairs of parallel lines do you see? So these are lines that are opposite each other that are always the same distance apart. And there are 3 possible answers: 0, 1, or 2 sets of parallel lines, 2 pairs. Okay, so if you have a shape with 4 sides and nothing is parallel, well, you just got yourself a quadrilateral, regular 4-sided shape. If it has 1 set of parallel lines like this little guy, and you have yourselves a trapezoid. Look at the top and the bottom line. In this case, for a trapezoid, we call those bases, base 1 and base 2. They are the ones that are parallel to each other. They're always the same distance apart. And that's how we actually can identify base 1 and base 2. Now, if you have 2 sets of parallel lines like this little guy, then you have a parallelogram. That's where it gets its name. Let's look at our second question. How many congruent sides do you see? How many equal sides? So again, we have our 3 different sets of families. And in the first family with no parallel lines, if you have 2 sets of equal sides, then you might have a kite. And notice with the kite, the 2 lines on the top above the eyes are equal, and the 2 lines on the bottom next to the rosy little cheeks are also equal. Let's look at the trapezoid. And there are 2 answers. You can have 1 set of equal sides, and we call this an isosceles trapezoid. And with the isosceles trapezoid, it's not the bases that are equal, but it's the 2 sides on the outer ends. Those would be equal to each other. Now, if you don't have any sides that are equal, then you just got yourself a regular old trapezoid. Easy enough to recognize. It has parallel lines, and a base 1 and base 2, you can identify it. Now, let's look at our third family, the parallelogram, where we had 2 sets of parallel lines. Now, it's possible that you have 2 sets of equal sides, and you got yourself a parallelogram. That's what parallelograms have, 2 sets of equal sides on the opposite sides. But you could have a parallelogram where all the sides are equal, and we call this the rhombus. It means every single side has the exact same length. And typically we can see a rhombus that looks like this, like a little square just tilted over. And we have one more special rhombus, the square. Both of these shapes have all equal sides. Let's look at question number 3. Do you have perpendicular lines? These are lines that make right angles. So you can recognize them as one that's going straight up and down and the other one is going horizontal. They make a perfect 90-degree angle. So here are the 2 possibilities. We're going to look at 2 sets of families. We're going to look at the trapezoid family and the parallelogram family. Now, with trapezoids, you might have 1 parallel line, 1 set, or you'll have none. So if you see 1 set of parallel lines like this little guy, you can see it makes a nice right angle in that bottom right corner. We call this a right trapezoid because it has a right angle. Makes sense. Now, if it doesn't have any right angles, again, it's just a trapezoid. Let's look at parallelograms. If you have no perpendicular lines, well, you just got yourself a regular parallelogram. But it's possible that you have all 4 sides have perpendicular lines. You see 4 right angles. You see them everywhere. Well, in that case, you have a rectangle because you have all right angles. That's what makes it a rectangle. I can see 4 right angles in it. Now, there is a very, very special rectangle. We've seen them before, our square. Our square also has 4 right angles. But remember, a square, not only is it in the rectangle family because it has 4 right angles, but it's also a rhombus because it has all 4 equal sides. And that's it, Math Marbles. These are the 3 questions you can ask yourself. So if you want to identify special quadrilaterals, ask yourself, do you see any parallel lines? Do you see any congruent lines? And do you see any perpendicular lines? I will see you in the next lesson. Take care.